We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Zayin Amud Aleph from Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 67a. The Gemara here is bringing a story with Nakdimon Ben Gurion that seems to indicate that he did give tzedakah properly. The Gemara says Mitzian Tachtov, so they used to put under him this cloth that he used to walk upon. Rashi over here says Mitzian Tachtov Tachas Raglov Lahalech Aleim. When he would walk, they would put this fine cloth beneath his feet that he would walk on top of. Uvayin Aniyim Umekaflin Osan Meacharav. And then the poor people would come. They would fold up this rug after him from behind him, and then they would keep that fabric. They would keep those garments, and apparently that was tzedakah. So you see that Nakdimon Ben Gurion did give tzedakah, and to that the Gemara answers, if you want, we can say that was just done for his own honor. He didn't do it for the sake of the tzedakah. If you want, we could say the following answer, he didn't do, according to his wealth, what he should have been giving. Yes, he gave tzedakah, but he did not give as much as he should have given according to the amount of wealth that he had. Like people say, according to the camel, that's how you load it up, and he could have taken a larger load and he did not, and that's why we refer to him as somebody who did not give tzedakah properly. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, so Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzadok said, Erev ben Nechama, I should see in consolation. This is like a kind of an oath, and he's talking about the daughter of Nakdimon Ben Gurion, that she became very poor. If I did not see her collecting barley from between the hooves of the horses in Akko, that's how poor she was. Karasi olem mikra zen, I called about her the following pasuk. It goes, you should go after the sheep, and you should shepherd your kids, but it doesn't refer to that. Rather, you read it as follows: Al tikri gediosayich ela geviosayich. Don't read it as your kids, but read it as your own person. She had to go beikve hatzon. She had to go after the footsteps of the animals in order to feed herself. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Rav Shemin bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Shemin bar Abba says that Rav Yochanan says, Hichnisa lo zav. Let's say she brings into the marriage gold. So shamino, so we evaluate it v'hareu keshavyev, and it's considered exactly what it's valued as. That's how much he has to write into the ksuba. Rashi over here says zav. What does it mean she brings in gold? It means chatichos zav. She brings in actual pieces of gold. V'hareu keshavyev, and it is exactly as it is valued. Lo yosef shlish. She doesn't have to add on a third. Like we said, if she brings cash into the marriage, she has to add on. V'lo yifchos chomesh, but he also doesn't have to deduct a fifth. Like we said, generally when she brings in metaltlin, you deduct a little in terms of what he has to write into the ksuba. No, when it comes to the gold, it's going to be exactly at what it's valued as. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from the following brisa. The brisa says, Hazav hareu kekelim. Zav is considered like kelim, like utensils. Rashi over here says, Zav hareu kekelim, zav shavur. It means if you have broken pieces of gold, hareu kekelim, that is like vessels. Umefarish vazel my kelim. The Gemara will explain what kind of kelim are we talking about. So what does this brisa mean when it says the gold is like kelim? My lav, is it not? Kekelim shel kasef, that we're considering the gold to be like silver utensils. The pachsi, and they actually will lose their value, and so there it should not be evaluated. When the husband has to write in the amount into the ksuba, he should write in a less amount. That's what it seems the brisa is saying, and that seems to be against Rabbi Yochanan. And the Gemara says, no, that's not what the brisa means. Rather, the brisa means kekelim shel zav. These pieces of gold are identical to kelim, to vessels of gold, the lo pachsi, that they do not go down in value, and therefore they will be evaluated at exactly what their estimated value is. And the Gemara says, well, 1 second, if that's what it meant, if we were saying that pieces of gold are the same as vessels of gold, imkain kekelov mi boile. If so, the brisa should have said that gold is not like kelim, but gold is like it itself being kelim, kekelov, and so therefore this explanation that we're talking about kelim shel zav does not make as much sense as saying kelim shel kesef. And the Gemara says further, v'yo tanya, and further we have another brisa. The brisa says, it says if you have gold, then that is considered like kelim, and dinare zav, let's say you have dinarim, which are kind of coin of gold, harehen keksafim, that is considered to be like money. And Rashi over here explains, dinare zav shehin tevu, and what that means to say is you have the actual dinarim of gold and they have the imprint of the king, of the government on it, like real coins. Harehen keksafim, that's treated like kesef. Lahosef shlish, then he's got to add on a third. Lefisha mizumonim l'schar, like we said earlier, it's easy to make a profit with those, and therefore he has to write in an even higher value in the ksuba when you're talking about dinare zav. And the brisa continues, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, b'makom shenagu shelo leparton. Let's say you're in an area where they don't generally exchange these items, so then shaman osan v'harein b'shavye, and then we evaluate them and we treat them exactly at their estimated value. We do not add and we do not subtract. And so the Gemara now says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Ahayer, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that what are we talking about over here? We're talking about a situation or a place where they're generally not exchanged. What is he referring to? What is he going on? Is he going on regular Zav or is he going on Dinore Zav? Ilay Ma'asef, if you say he's going on the end of what the Tana Kama said on the Dinore Zav, so he's talking about actual coins, and he's saying if you're in a place where these coins are not taken as currency, so then they are estimated at their own actual value. So then, if that's the case, Mechlal the Tana Kama Savar, that would imply that the Tana Kama is saying, Afilu ben Mokum Shenagu Shelo Leportan, even in a place where it's not normal to exchange these, to use these as currency, and still the Tana Kama is going to say that's considered kiksafim, that's considered like regular money. Halo nafgi, but this money, it's not really used as money, so that would not make any sense at all. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel cannot be going on dinare zav. Elolava resha. Rather, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, when he talks about something that's not exchanged, that's not used, what is he going on? He's going on the resha. He's going on regular pieces of gold, not coins of gold. V'hachi kamar, and this is what the Brisa means to say, zav, when you have pieces of gold, hareu kekalim, that's considered like kalim according to the Tana Kama. My kalim, and what kalim are we talking about? Kalim shel kesef. Like we argued earlier, the Tana Kama means to say that it's treated like kalim, which are silver, like regular kalim, in which case, again, the person should actually be writing in a lesser value. The husband should write a lesser value into the ksuba. And then the way you understand the Brisa is, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Harehu kedinarin shel zav b'makam shenagu shelo lepartan, that these pieces of gold are equivalent to coins of gold in places where these coins of gold are not treated, are not exchanged like regular money. And again, you're going to write in the actual value. But in any case, what do you see again in the Tana Kama? It seems like these pieces of gold are treated like kalim shel kesef. And the Gemara answers, lo, no, liolam ha-seifa. Really, we could say Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is actually going on the seifa. He's talking about dinare zav, u'denafgi al yedei adachak. And the machlokas between Rav Shimon ben Gamliel and the Tana Kama is, let's say these dinarim of zav, they can be used, but only forced in a forced situation. It's not easy to use them. It's not easy to exchange them. Uvaha kamiflagi, and that's exactly the machlokas over here. Mar savar, one holds, kevan denafki, that since they are used and they are able to be exchanged, mishabchinan la, so therefore they're considered to be like regular currency, and therefore you actually have to increase the value when the husband writes the corresponding value into the ksuba. Umar savar, and the other one holds, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds, kevan de lo nafki el al yedei adachak, since they're only spent, but it's only in forced situations, it's only al yedei adachak, lo mishabchinan la, so therefore you only treat them at their actual value. The husband does not have to increase the value. And the Gemara continues, if you want, I could say another answer, kula Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Here really the entire brisa is actually Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and there are words missing in the brisa, and this is how you understand the brisa. Zohav hareu kekelim, again, when it comes to gold, that's treated like vessels. Dinare zav harein keksafim, when it comes to dinarim of zav, that's treated like money. Bamed devarim amurim, and then you have to put in that what are we talking about? B'makom shenagu lepartan, in a place where they're freely exchanged, that's where we treat it like kesef. Avol b'makom shenagu shelo lepartan, but if it's at a place where they're generally not easily exchanged, so shamin osam, so then you just evaluate them, v'hareihein b'shavyein, and you treat them at their exact value. You don't have to increase the value. Divrei Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that's the opinion of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel omer, because Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, b'makom shenagu shelo lepartan, shamin osam v'hareihein b'shavyein, in a place where they're generally not exchanged, so we evaluate them and we treat them at their actual value in terms of what the husband writes into the ksuba. In any case, though, the Gemara says, mikol makom kekelav mi boile, but still that first question was a question. If you're talking about kelim shel zahav, you should have said kekelav, not kekelim. So how could you say we're talking about kelim shel kesef? And to that, the Gemara says, kasha, that is indeed difficult. And the Gemara continues and gives another two answers on behalf of Rabbi Yochanan. Same, if you want, I could say, hacha b'mayaskin, and here what are we talking about? Bedava pricha, we're talking about smashed gold, meaning to say, when the Brisa says the gold is considered like silver kelim, that's talking about smashed gold. And when Rabbi Yochanan said that we treat the gold and we treat it at its value, so then we're talking about regular pieces of gold. And the Gemara has a similar answer here. Rav Ashi says, b'mimale, we're talking about a situation of granules of gold. When you have granules of gold, again, there we're going to treat it like silver kelim. We're going to depreciate the value a little bit. But Rabbi Yochanan's talking about regular pieces of gold, and we're going to treat it at its exact value. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yanai says, B'samim shel antochia, the b'samim of antochia, harehen keksafim, that's treated like actual money, that was treated like currency in that place. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says in the name of Rabbi Yonasan, Gemalim shel Aravya, the Gemalim of Aravya, the camels of Aravya, Isha Gova Parna Mehem, the woman collects her marriage settlement from them. Rashi over here says, B'samim shel antuchya hu ikar schorasim, that they use that for, the merchants use that as currency. V'isha shechnisa lebala shum mehem, if a woman brings in something evaluated property as part of the dowry from B'samim of antuchya, harein kiksafim lahosef shlish, that's considered like she brought cash into the marriage and he has to add a third. And parna also, Rashi explains, as revach shlish, again, he has to add a third, so that's referring also to the camels of Arabia, that's considered like cash. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Papi, Rav Papi says, Hani tusvei devei michsi, if you have the garments of a michsi, Isha gova parna mehem, a woman collects her marriage settlement from them. V'amar Rav Papi, and Rav Papi also says, Hani saki de rudya, if you have the sackcloth of rudya, v'ashli de kamchunya, and you have the ropes of kamchunya, Isha gova parna mehen, she also collects the marriage settlement from them. These items also, they were used as currency and they're considered like cash. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, May reish hava amina, originally I thought, Hani arniki de mechuzah, if you have these money pouches of mechuzah, Isha gova parna mehem, again, the woman will collect, the wife will collect the marriage settlement from them. Now here Rashi has a different explanation of parna. Arniki de mechuzah kisin malay and mos, again, these were the money pouches. Parna lazeh shamati, for this time, the word parna means a little different. It means ksuba minichse yisomim. We're not talking about the fact that she brings it into the marriage, and it's considered like bringing in cash into the marriage. Rather, what we mean over here is when she collects the ksuba from the orphans, in that case, she can collect from this as well, from these money pouches. Generally, we would say that metaltalin of Yisomim, there's no shibud on them. You can't collect from metaltalin, a lebal chov to a bal chov. But over here, we're going to say that these money pouches have a status of land. That's how Rashi understands this part of the Gemara. They have a status of land, and she can collect from the orphans these arniki de mechuzah. And the Gemara here explains, my time, and what's the reason? Asmechitayu alayo, because people rely on them. They treat it just like land in terms of shibud. But then the Gemara continues, Rava said, Kevan de chazoi, de shakli lehu v'nafki. But then I saw that they take them and then they go out, v'chi mishkechi ara zavni behu, and when they find land, they actually use it to purchase the land. So in other words, they're still relying on land, even in that area. Amina asmechatayu arahu. So then I said, really, everything's really relying on the land, and the money pouches do not have the status of land. And Rashi over here explains, asmechatayu alayu v'gavion metaltali kihani, that they actually do collect metaltal like these money pouches. Shein land b'makom karkos, they serve like land, lefi shabal yischorem, because these people were merchants, and therefore they treated these like land. But then I saw, no, the shakli lu anoshim almonos v'agrusha shagovas ksuvas, and even these women, the widows and the divorcees who would use this and collect the ksuba, a'arahu, they would always ultimately rely on land, ve'ein govos ela min akarka min yisomim. Therefore, if you're collecting from yisomim, you have to collect only from land. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, hamasi es bito stam, let's say somebody marries off his daughter stam, and he doesn't specify an amount for the dowry, lo yivchos la mechamishim zuz, he can't give her less than 50 zuz. Pasak la'achnisa aruma, let's say they make a deal that he's going to bring her into the marriage naked, meaning he's not providing any clothing. Lo yomer habal, the husband shouldn't say keshachnisenu lebeisi, when I bring her into my house, achsena b'chsusi, then I'm going to give her my garments. Ela mechasa v'oda b'veisavia, rather he has to provide clothing for her even while she's in the house of her father. V'chein hamasi yasiyasoma, also let's say you have a caretaker who's marrying off an orphan, lo yivchos la mechamishim zuz, he shouldn't give her less than 50 zuz from the public funds. Im yesh bekis mefarnes and osal lefi chvod, and if there's more money available in those public funds, then he has to use that money to support her according to her dignity. And the Gemara says, Amar Abaya says, Chamishim zuzei pshite. When we talk about the 50 zuz over here, we're talking about the simple zuz. Those were worth 1/8 of the standard zuz. And the Gemara says, Mimai, how do we know that's the case? Midiktani seifa, because what does it say at the end of the Mishnah? Im yesh bekis mefarnes and osal lefi chvod. It says if there's public funds available, then you give her according to her dignity. Ve'amrinan my kiss, and we say, what do we mean by kiss? Amar Rachva. Rachva said, Arniki shel tzedakah. Again, we're talking about the purse of the charity. We're talking about the charity funds. Bisalka daitin chamishim zuzei mamish. Now, if you think we're talking about 50 actual zuz, that's a lot of money. Im yesh bekis kama yavinan los. If they have available, how much already are you going to give her? Even the 50 would be a sizable amount. Elishma mina chamishim zuzei pshite. Obviously, the Mishnah says chamishim zuzei. It means chamishim zuzei pshite, the simple zuzim. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Yosem v'yasoma shabol isparnis, if you have an orphan boy and an orphan girl that are coming to the charity in order to be supported, mefarnisin es hayasoma v'yachakach mefarnisin es hayasom. First we support the orphan girl, and then we have the rest of the money we'll use for the orphan boy. In other words, the yasoma, the girl takes precedence, because the man, it's normal for him to go door to door and beg, but that's not normal for a woman, so we give her the charity funds first. And the Gemara continues, Yasam v'yasoma, again, if you have a boy that's an orphan and a girl that's an orphan, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Zayin Amud Beis.